I am Nazer, S for BA English, Amal College of Advanced Studies, Nilambur. John Dryden. Dryden is the first poet laureate of England. He is the most important writer in the 17th century England. His most important book of criticism is an essay on dramatic poesy. Whatever he had to say in this is also seen in the preface of his own poetical and other works. This manner of critical writing was learned from the French critic, especially from Michel Monaghan and Peter Corneille. They gave him the library to discuss more than one subject at a time. It also gave him opportunities for personal explanation which were necessary because of the attacks on his works. But this had its defects. It made his criticism unsystematic, sometimes inconsistent and repetitive. Even though scattered, Dryden's criticism gives us a clear picture of what he thought of the nature and function of poetry, the forms and of the business of criticism. He combines the merit of both the traditional and the classic modes of criticism. Himself, there is a relation between what he says and what he does. Dryden's views. Dryden, like Aristotle, defined poetry as a process of imitation. It imitates facts which are past and present, popular beliefs, superstitions, and things in their ideal form. Dryden defines Shakespeare's use of the supernatural because they are found on popular beliefs. They are imitating other people's phrases. Dryden thinks that poetry and painting are not mere imitation of nature, but the best of nature, that is the most noble and true. They present up perfect images. We get the pleasure of seeing all the scattered beauties of nature without its deformities and faults. Plato said that poetry or painting is imitating things which actually are copies of ideal pattern. Dryden thought they imitated the ideal pattern itself. Dryden believed that the end of poetry is giving delight and transporting us to another realm and no instruction. The poet is neither a teacher or a bare imitator or a photographer, but a creator with life as the raw material. He produces something new altogether, resembling the original, but different from it the structure. A poet creates a work of art rather than merely copy old nature. Dramatic poetry. Dryden paid special attention to drama because it was the most influential genre of his time. There are many controversies and puritanical resistance against the theatrical excess. These excesses were scenes of battles and death on stage. Dryden argued that there is nothing wrong in showing physical action like battles and duels on stage, but he felt that this should be avoided on stage as it can never be imitated. Dryden demolished the three unities, the prejudice against tragic comedy and the strict enforcement of principles of decorum, and Dryden did not agree with the then prevalent interpretation of the three unities. First one, the plot should be single. Second, the time of action is 24 hours. Third, the place should be same everywhere. He found nothing wrong in having subplots and extending the time beyond 24 hours. A bigger time frame would allow the plot to mature properly. He also disregarded the unity to place because it was too rigorous for the proper development of the plot and character. Tragedy. Dryden's definition of tragedy was similar to that of Aristotle. He also spoken of the imitation of one entire, great and probable action which when staged would move us to fear and pity and then paroxysm. Dryden's rash hero is also like the one of Aristotle and Horace. He does not find any use for the group of characters known as the chorus in Greek tragedy. Comedy. Dryden does not have much of his own to say on comedy. Like Aristotle, Dryden also feels that comedy represents the life of inferior person and low subjects. He thinks that the primary objective of comedy is entertainment, instruction coming only as a second. The person in a comedy or of a lower quality. The action is very little. The faults and vices are extravagance of the youth and frailties of human nature. They are not pre-planned crimes. Dryden wanted English comedy to be more refined than it was that time. Dryden said that Ben Jonson had specialized in humor, but he lacked wit. Dryden felt that repartee is the one of the greatest of comedy. The greatest pleasure of the audience is a chance exchanging of wit kept up on both sides and swiftly managed. Beaumont and Fletcher were except in this kind of wit. Dryden wanted refined laughter and not the coarse laughter for which resulted from the humorous and eccentric traits in individuals. In a comedy of humor, the spectators laughed at the humorous character. In a comedy of wit, which later became the comedy of manners, they laughed with a witty one. Comedy. Dryden does not have much of his own to say on comedy. Like Aristotle, Dryden also feels that comedy represents the life of inferior person and low subjects. He thinks that the primary objective of comedy is entertainment, instruction coming only as the second. The person in a comedy or of a lower quality. The action is very little. The faults and vices are extravagance of the youth and frailties of human nature. They are not pre-planned crimes. Dryden wanted English comedy to be more refined than it was that time. Dryden said that Ben Jonson had specialized in humor, but he lacked wit. Dryden felt that repartee is one of the graces of comedy. The greatest pleasure of the audience is a chance exchange of wit kept upon his both sides and swiftly managed. Beaumont and Fletcher were experts in the kind of wit. Dryden wanted refined laughter and not the curse of laughter for which resulted from the humorous and eccentric traits in individuals. In a comedy of humorous, the spectators laughed at a humorous character. In a comedy of wit, which later became the comedy of manners, they laughed with the witty one. Epic. Dryden thought that epic is superior to tragedy. He asks us this question: what virtue is there in a tragedy that is not found in a poem? He thinks that epic is the greatest work of human nature. Aristotle had preferred tragedy to the epic. Regarding the visual appeal of tragedy, Dryden asks 3 points. 1. It is the actor's work as much as the poet's, and so the poet alone cannot take credit. 2. The stage is handicapped because it cannot show many things like big armies on the stage. Third, while reading an epic, we have time to digest what we read, but we miss many beauties of a play and performance. Dryden does not insist on a moral in an epic, as Aristotle wanted. Satire. Dryden carefully studies that satirical tradition of Rum. He perfected it in his own style as one of the greatest satirists of England. His major work was Absalom and Achitophel. Through this, he gave a new direction to English satire. He emphasized a need for artistic control in a satire. There is no place for direct name-calling or disgust or a moral enmity against the subject of the satire. He says that a satirist should make the man die sweetly rather being butchered. He insisted on a smooth civilization that had unity of the design, limiting itself to one main subject. In other words, the satirist should choose one wise or folly for his target. It is just like an epic. The poet chooses one character for this special praise and make others lesser than him. Thank you for watching.